60% of the world's best solar resources, but it received just 2% of global clean energy investments last year. Zoom out, and the picture is just as stark. In the last decade, only 1 in every 5 clean energy dollars went to emerging and developing countries outside China. To keep the 1.5-degree limit alive and deliver universal energy access, annual clean energy investment in those countries must rise more than 5-fold by 2030. And that demands bold national policies and concrete international action to reform the global financial architecture, drastically increase the lending capacity of multilateral development banks, making them bigger, bolder, and better able to leverage massive amounts of private finance at reasonable costs, and take effective action on debt relief and scale up proven tools like debt for climate swaps. Today, developing countries pay outlandish sums for both debt and equity financing, in part because of outdated risk models, bias, and broken assumptions that boost the cost of capital. Credit rating agencies and investors must modernize. We need a new approach to risk that reflects the promise of clean energy, the rising cost of climate chaos, and the danger of stranded fossil fuel assets. I urge parties to unite to solve the complex challenges facing some developing countries in the energy transition, such as early retirement of coal plants. Excellencies, dear friends, the fossil fuel age is flailing and failing. We are in the dawn of a new energy era, an era where cheap, clean, abundant energy powers a world rich in economic opportunity, where nations have the security of energy autonomy and the gift of power is a gift for all. That world is within reach, but it won't happen on its own, not fast enough, not fair enough. It is up to us. We have the tools to power the future for humanity. Let's make the most of them. This is our moment of opportunity, and I thank you.
Powerful remarks. I think what was very compelling about your address is that you focused not just what's on stake, but you laid out a vision. You laid out a very specific roadmap that reframes climate change entirely from a scientific and moral imperative to actually positioning climate change really firmly as a financial and economic opportunity. That's really the title of this report and really the crux of what you have shared with all of us today. Now, what I'd like to have is a short dialogue with you to address some of the pressing concerns or some of the pending questions that may come to mind for some who have read this report. To start off, I'd really like to focus on this fundamental issue that you've raised, which is this reframing of climate change. You've really identified key levers of financial and economic opportunity, but that really comes at odds with the dominant narrative around climate change, which focuses on a conversation around sacrifice and cost. There's this perception that climate action is a net cost, that you have to give up something, that you have to give up the opportunity for growth. What would you say, how would you address or this shift in perception or the need to bridge the gap from the possibility of what we know is the opportunity and what people believe and what they think about climate action?
Well, it is clear that we will need much more energy in the future. And it is clear that today the cheapest and easiest way to increase energy capacity is through renewables. So the renewables are not a cost. They are the cheapest investment for what is needed in today's world. And on the other hand, I think it's important to move what is usually, and I myself probably sometimes fall in that trap, which is a description of the realities of climate change in the world, with all the terrible disasters that are happening, with emissions still growing, with devastating impacts in different areas of the world where human life is becoming more and more difficult. The small islands, desertic areas in Africa, the floods, the heat waves, I mean, the glaciers melting, the rising sea level. And it's important to say that all this is true. We are in a very dramatic situation. We are at risk of losing the possibility to keep the rising temperature limit at 1.5 degrees. But now we have the tools and the instruments to do what is needed to stop this evolution. The problem is that we have science on our side, we have the economics on our side, but we do not yet have political will everywhere on our side.
Yeah. So it's possible for us to hold space for both of those truths, that we are running out of time, that there is this severe urgency, but we now, more than ever before, have the tools, resources, technologies at our disposal to address it within a reasonable time frame, within the next 5 or 10 years. The other reaction that we may get to this report is that we are in a moment of significant geopolitical challenges, whether it's human rights violations, conflicts, wars around the world, economic challenges. Some may question, why did you use this platform and this stage to focus on climate, focus on this topic, as opposed to other ones that may feel more immediate or urgent?
Well, let's be clear. This is the right moment for a new offensive in bringing to the global public opinion the climate issues. And for two reasons. Governments are now taking the decisions that are essential for the presentation of adequate national climate plans, the so-called NDCs, in September. So this is the moment to put on the table very strongly everywhere in the world and to mobilize public opinions to put pressure on governments in order to make sure that those NDCs have the right measures and have the right impulse in the energy transition. Second reason is that we are launching the COP, and I have the enormous pleasure to have the president of the COP here. And so this is the moment to accelerate the global discussion that is needed in order to make the COP a success. But on the other hand, let's be clear. Of course, I mean, I will be speaking about Gaza in a few minutes in the Security Council. I mean, we all are aware of the dramatic problems that we are witnessing in the world. On the other hand, the media is many times concentrated in the fireworks of politics. So it's sometimes difficult to bring these issues to the public opinion. But let's not forget that climate change is an existential question. And so what would be a crime is to forget about climate change, because we need to concentrate on the more pressing issues of this moment, because they are only theoretically more pressing. Nothing is more pressing than to accelerate the energy transition and all the other strategies of the green economy and the green society in order to make sure that we keep the 1.5 degrees alive. We are on the verge of making it irreversible to lose the 1.5 degree limit. And that is something we need to avoid at all costs. This is the moment to act about it.
Yeah. And what's so important is to recognize that all of these crises are interconnected. Right? We can't take any one of them in isolation.
Climate change is a factor of insecurity, of instability. I mean, if you look at the floods and the drought in many areas, the increase of poverty that they generate, the increase of hunger they generate. Look at the Sahel. The Sahel is today the fantastic area for terrorists to thrive. And one of the reasons is because the economy is becoming more and more difficult as climate change makes less and less areas available for cultivation. So people are living in worse and worse conditions because of climate, and this is an enormous impulse to the terrorism activities in the Sahel. So even when we talk about the dramatic problems of security in the world today, let's not forget that climate change is a dramatic accelerator of instability.
Yes. And the other thing that you mentioned is stories, right? It's the narrative and the fact that climate change is always positioned in the context of disasters or things that are going in the wrong direction, something happening to us, and we lose agency. So I think for a takeaway for everybody in this room is also to talk about the opportunity, to not talk about climate change solely as something in the negative direction, uplift those stories, uplift those heroes, those innovators that are on the front lines of creating new economies, and that will be an engine for hope and for inspiration.
I contact many young people, starting by my family, and I have to say that we see lots of young people with a deep sense of depression because of climate change. And we need to fight it. And to fight it is to say, this is not inevitable. We have the tools, the instruments, and the capacity to change course and to make sure that human and planet dimensions can be brought together. And it is really important to show the reality as reality is, not to try to, I would say, put a rosy scenario on what's happening, but at the same time to show that we can change that scenario and make it much better than what it is today if we take the decisions that the economy and the science today make possible.
Yes, because this also dominant narrative of it's too late is also defeating.
Just the doom and gloom is not the solution of the messaging we need. We need to explain the dramatic situations we have, but we need to prove that there are reasons to be hopeful, and those reasons depend, of course, on the political will of those that have responsibilities, and that is why it is so important to mobilize public opinion, to put pressure on governments to take the right decisions. And at the same time, when one looks at the private sector, it's very impressive how the shift is taking place. For a very simple reason, people would like to make more money.
Yes, so it's kind of the carrot and the stick, and the carrot exists because, and that the private sector is moving because those opportunities.
Markets are still distorted, and they are distorted against renewables. And in many countries, we still lack the regulations and the instruments to facilitate it. But that is one reason more to tell governments, take the right decisions, allow markets to work in a fair way, and at the same time, make sure that transition is just. In all transitions, look at the digital transition, there are winners and losers. In all transitions, there are people that lose opportunities in their lives. So it is extremely important to support the regions and to support the people that are affected by this transition. I remember closing, when I was Prime Minister, the last coal plant, coal mine in my country. And there was a program that was established of investments in that area, of training, of increased social protection. I think when one sees sectors that will tend to reduce and sectors that are going up, we need to make sure that we care about the people that is affected by this transition.
Yes, and
people and regions.
Absolutely. Such an important message, because now is the opportune moment between where we are today and COP30 If we deliver this message at COP30, it's too late, because now is the opportunity to action on all of this information and be able to see if we can have some sort of collective movement towards more ambition, more action, and addressing it in a way that is responsive to the justice needs and the ways in which you can bring people along this transition. I would like to now conclude with a question from one of our viewers in a live event in Africa. One of our Global Africa Model UN Agency members from South Africa, his name is Zahir Soliman. He asked a question which you alluded to, so I'd love to carry forward that theme, which is many young people feel overwhelmed by the threat of climate change and fear it may already be too late. As the UN Secretary General, what gives you hope that our generation still has a fighting chance to change the future? What is your final message for young people?
I think it's true that my generation has largely failed. We came too late in relation to what would be necessary. But fortunately, things have evolved very quickly from the point of view of science and from the point of view of the economy. So even if we neglected, we didn't take profit of our chances in my generation, I think that the instruments are now created in order to allow for that just transition to take place. And I trust that the new generations will accelerate and consolidate a new way for human beings to live in harmony with nature.
What a wonderful note to conclude this event on. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for convening us on the occasion of the launch of this report. I hope all of you are able to take parts of it into your own work and find opportunities for collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.